I'm Toussaint Morrison with On-Site Media, and I'm with the president of Communities United Against Police Brutality, Michelle Gross. Today is Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. Really quickly, I want to ask you about the event on Sunday with the City Council and Black Visions Collective and all the people involved in announcing that they're going to disband the police. For my reading or my research on the City Council, kind of reading into Lisa Bender, the president, she's been a staunch advocate for shoveling and bike lanes, and I haven't really heard a lot of talk or any kind of energy from her about disbanding, defunding, or doing anything police related until now. Is this a convenient time for her to show up in the Minneapolis City Council as well, or have they been doing this work all along?
No, this is an absolute action of convenience. These guys are trying to save their hides by virtue of the fact that they haven't done anything about policing this entire time. We've been to them over and over with a number of recommendations, and a lot of these people had a big role in blocking our police insurance amendment, which would have gotten rid of a guy like Derek Chauvin. He wouldn't have been available to kill George Floyd had the City Council acted sooner. So I think that it's a bit of a guilty conscience thing. It's also a bit of pandering, because they know that they don't actually have the power to do this, but they make these kind of promises that, and it's an easy way out. Oh, we'll just get rid of the police.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The city charter isn't going to let you do that, okay? You actually have to change the charter to do that. So it's a very convenient kind of a way to absolve themselves of their long responsibility in this matter. All of this lays at the feet of the City Council and the mayor. Their failures to act, and they're, and they're going along with all kinds of nonsense, basically, is what got us in this spot. And the fact that they, now suddenly wake up and they're, more radical than now or whatever. I thought, what are you kidding me? We couldn't even get you guys to do the simplest tiny things. And, holding police accountable, would be way down on the list, but we couldn't even get them to do tiny things.
Like what? What's
to rein in the police? Oh, just things like making a policy to make police to, one of the things that's important is police should not interfere with people videotaping them. So we couldn't get them to agree to that policy. It took us 3 years to convince them to ban fear-based training. 3 years of hard work to get them to ban fear-based training. We put together a set of recommendations in coalition with other organizations for the police contract. And they go into negotiations and they're not bringing forward our recommendations. And these are sensible, good recommendations that are evidence-based, and they don't bring any of that forward. They have all these opportunities to act, and they never do. Now, all of a sudden, they're more radical than now, talking about disbanding, defunding, or whatever the heck it is, this day or that day. The target keeps shifting, the conversation changes. I don't really know what they're talking about at this point. I just know that they can't actually do it under the charter.
What do you want the future for the City Council to be moving forward in some type of accountability or culpability in what has happened in the past several years that they've been present in the city? Well,
look, these things are not all mutually exclusive. What could happen is we could take police out of the areas that they shouldn't be going into. There's no reason for police to be answering mental health crisis calls. They should be getting away from, shutting down homeless encampments. We don't need them to go to overdose calls or medical illness, calls, things like that. There's a whole host of wellness checks. There's a whole host of things that they don't actually need to be doing. And we could actually essentially sort of defund or step down the funding for police by not having them do those other kinds of things, and then putting into place at the same time some very specific and robust police accountability measures so that we can control the conduct of the officers when they engage in the kinds of calls that they would be calling. Why do you think
the City Council has been more interested or directing their energy into urban planning as opposed to situations with the police or addressing it head on when we have a situation like George Floyd, Jamar Clark, or these extremely violent, one would call modern day lynchings in front of the public, traumatizing the entire communities? Why do you think the City Council has not been investing energy in police reform, abolishment, defundation, or disbandment?
Well, frankly, because it's easier for them to pander to the police, to the police union and to the police administration, than it is for them to listen to the community. They, you know, a lot of these folks are white. A lot of them have white constituencies that vote them in, and they, you know, do what they have to do to appeal to those constituencies. And a lot of those constituencies, you know, do not recognize that there is a problem with policing because they're not the subjects of that problem. So, you know, when you think about who's the subjects of it, some of the council members have been a little bit better. I don't want to like say they're all a blanket, right? Some have been a little bit better, but they still haven't taken the actual actions that we need for them to address this seriously. A good example is the Office of Police Conduct Review. That office has an abysmal record. That's the office where people can complain about police. That office has an abysmal record, a terrible record of addressing police conduct. In 7.5 years, they have taken in about 2,700 or so complaints from members of the community, and they've sustained and disciplined 12 of them in 7.5 years. That's a 0.46% discipline rate for complaints that come through that office.
How does that stack up to the national average?
Oh, it's appalling. We are the low-end outliers for the country by far. The average civilian oversight body sustains and disciplines about 7 to 8%.
Okay.
And so we're like not even half of 1%.
Yeah.
It is beyond ridiculous how bad we are. And so, you know, this is something that they could have been fixing all along. We have been bringing this to their attention for 7 years. And for 7 years, they have looked the other direction. And now all of a sudden that they're facing down the barrel of a major lawsuit. I mean, I think that the George Floyd settlement is going to eclipse the, you know, Justine Damon settlement by a long shot. And the Justine Damon settlement was almost the largest settlement in the history of the entire country of the U.S. It's not quite the highest, but it's in the top 5.
What can people do moving forward as we wrap up on this to hold the city council accountable if they're not holding themselves accountable and only showing up when it's convenient?
They have to pay attention to what the city council is doing, and more importantly, what the city council is not doing. You know, we've got to come to the city council meetings. We have to insist that they allow us to speak, which they often don't. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've been dragged out of city council for trying to speak.
Well, nobody's allowed to speak on Sunday. It was just them.
Yeah, it was just them. And you know, that's another thing. They did mention a couple of them mentioned taking a vote over the weekend. It's actually illegal for them to have done so. So I've gotten a data request to find out, in fact, if they actually did take a vote. Because if they did, they engaged in illegal conduct. You know, you have to notice meetings. You have to give public notice of meetings so that members of the public can attend those meetings and watch their conduct. They can't just have secret meetings where they vote and this and that and the other thing. So, you know, a couple of them mentioned voting over the weekend, and I thought, when did you vote? You know, how did you have a vote when you did not have a public notice of a meeting? You know, they just don't get to do whatever the heck they feel like doing. They have to follow the rules like the rest of us.
Okay.
So.
Well, I look forward to showing up to city council meetings as well. I've never been to one, and I look forward to getting educated about it and all this coming to the surface. So.
Definitely. I would encourage people to check out our website, www.cuapb.org. On our homepage, we have our document of 44 recommendations to end police violence. And I would really ask people to read those things. This is a document that looks at the Minneapolis Police Department, but it looks at every police department. The changes that we're recommending would help the Minneapolis Police Department, but they would help every police department and law enforcement agency. So I'd encourage people to read that stuff, get familiar with what needs to really happen, and start demanding those changes from the city council and the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.